Day three. Day three is where you start to do your modelling, isn't it? So we've kind of got some ideas, haven't we? We've got this concept about granularity, and that makes sense in terms of our facts and our dimensions, doesn't it? But what do we need to do now? How do we actually start to go from 0 to hero? Alright everyone, welcome along. Day 3. So I thought, we've kind of got the haven't we, the idea of a fact table and a dimension, right? And I say, I can't understand that. We're getting the idea as well, haven't we? We've touched on granularity, that if you've only got something that's down at a month level, that's not going to work when you go, I want to know what happened on that day. You're going to struggle. If you decide, I could just divide it down by the number of days, you're welcome to do that, but that's really bad analysis. But you're going to get data sets where that makes sense. Like if you're looking at your daily sales over time, but you've got a budget or like a sales target, that sales target is likely at a month. So there's all sorts of things you'd have to do. So I thought, well, let's have a look and do some modelling and start to actually see if we can figure out what we mean by it. So don't forget, have a look down below, hit like and subscribe, and I'll also put a link where you can download the data set that we're going to use for this, right? It's just a simple spreadsheet for today. Keep it simple, have a good start with it, Champion. Alright, so here's a little data set. I've used it a few times. It's a good little one to use, right? It makes a lot of sense to start with. If you want to start doing something simple, have a look at it, want to figure out, do I know what I'm doing, do I not? This is a good simple one. Okay, the basic pretext to this, okay, is that we've got an online retailer, I think. It's kind of the way this goes. Okay, so if we zoom in on it, we can see we've got like an order ID, we've got order dates, we've got ship dates, got the way that they're shipped, right? Customers, customer names, that kind of thing, right? Details of that, address details, category, subcategory products, a sales amount, profit amount, discount, percentage, for example, and quantity, right? This is great. Really basic little sales table, okay? First off, right, what we're going to do is let's do a little bit of a thought experiment with this, right? So we'll come back and forth as we go between this, right? But how many tables do you think think we've got here, right? A good way to start with it is if you start with things like, dates is going to be a calendar, isn't it? So that's dates. It's going to be 1, 2. We need a calendar. Give you that much for free, right? The next thing you want to look at is how many IDs have we got, right? Because IDs, especially for a big flat file like this, it's often that's where we're going to roughly end up with, isn't it? If we look at that, you can see we've got like an order ID. Tell you what, let's get out of here. Let's try zooming in. Let's see if that's going to make it better. So you can see, look at that. So we've got an order ID table, we've got a customer ID table, or ID, and then way over here, we've got a product ID. So that's 3 IDs, isn't it? So tell you what, let's have a look at this, right, and see. If we look at this here, so dimensions, right, we know we're going to have calendar, okay? Another dimension that we know we're going to have, because we can see it, yeah? Do you remember we had the customer ID and product ID, didn't we? So we're going to have customer and we're going to have product, okay? 2 further dimensions, because we want to be able to aggregate stuff by that, okay? So we had one more ID, didn't we? And I just, a number of these tables, right? We had order ID, okay? So where is that? Is that a dimension? Is that going to be a fact? Okay? The idea, have you? Okay, so I'll give you a clue. Order ID, you don't want to bring it in, right? Typically, from a raw analysis perspective, do not bring something like this in. Right? It's related, it's a fact, okay? So orders are going to be a fact. Now, because it's a fact and we want to aggregate it, we're not going to aggregate order IDs. Now, it might well be that you're going to have a case where you might have an order ID that's got multiple lines or rows within that order. Okay, so that would be, you got something else, you then have an invoice ID, and then it gets all complicated. In real analysis terms, you don't want it. In practical terms, 9 times out of 10, you'll end up probably including that, because at some point somebody's going to say, that report's really good, but can I have the order numbers for that day's sales, or that week's sales, that month's sales? Right? It'll come out. Or which orders did customer X do? And it's not just going to be good enough to say, we've got this. So the realities of the model in the visual analytics world and space is we're going to need to get that data out so that we can then use it in the future. So you, in practical terms, you will end up having to use it. So we're going to have orders, calendar, customers, and products. So what we'll be able to do is total orders by product, for example. Okay, dead simple, dead easy. What we can then do is to go back to our spreadsheet. We've got a rough idea, haven't we, roughly where we're going to end up, haven't we? So let's start doing that. So let's cut on our Power BI desktop and see how does that start to shape out. Okay, so here we are, Power BI desktop. What I've done to start with is I've brought the calendar in. Okay, I've brought it in, not going to apologise for it. Thought it's a sensible thing to do. Okay, the next step is going to be to bring in our data set, or Excel spreadsheet in this case. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be an Excel workbook, so I'm just going to click an Excel workbook, bring that in. Okay, and I'm going to browse to where that is. Okay, so it's coming in. When you bring in an Excel spreadsheet, remember to tick the box for the page you want. You might get all the sheets that you want. You might have it coming up saying it's going to suggest or recommend some tables for you. In this case, it hasn't. Select that. I'm going to click transform the data, and it'll take us into our query builder. Okay. I'm going to do a controversial step here. Okay. I do it, and I do it a lot, especially when I'm using Excel spreadsheets for it. There's method in my madness, but it is madness to do because it's not more efficient. So it's not an efficiency saving, but in my mind it helps because it gets you standard points for it. When we do more about advanced M, we might cover this, but we'll start for now. This is what I do. You'll see some books say, oh, don't do this. I do it, and I do this in my professional life regularly with Excel spreadsheets. I'm aware it's not the best, but because of it, the nature of what you're going to do, and as things get more complicated, you'll often find this is a good place to do, a good place to start. Okay, so I'm going to start here, do this thing. It's up to you if you decide. I'm going to do what he says. I don't like it. He's rubbish. Right? I'm going to call this base. Okay, the basics of where we're going to start. This is the raw point that we've got that data ingested. Okay, and I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to untick the enable load. Okay, the other thing I'm going to do one more thing just because I know we're never going to use. I'm going to get rid of this order ID. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to remove it. Okay, so I've now I've built what I'm going to consider to be that base table. Okay, this is like the starting point that I'm going to then extract my tables out of. So right now we've got a flat file, haven't we? It's just one plane of data. And what this kind of process that we're going through is all about is popping. That's what I call it. You pop it, you want it, right? You make it a more three-dimensional structure. At least that's how it appears in my mind, okay? So we're going to have like a fact table, and then we're going to have some dimensions around it, and suddenly we've got something that's going to be a proper analytical model from that basic flat file that we started with. So how do we go about this? What's the best way to start? So what we do is we right click on this and we're going to reference. Okay? And let's start really simple. Let's start with product. So as far as product is concerned, what I want to do is I want to keep product name, I'm going to keep product ID, category and subcategory. Okay? And then all I'm going to do is right click and remove the other columns. Okay, I'm probably going to put product that side of it. Okay? Reorder the columns as well. And we're nearly there. The last thing that we need to do though, isn't it, is if we right click on here and we're going to remove duplicates. Okay? Now, by removing duplicates, we're going to get that distinct list. These are our products that we actually have. This is that distinct list of products that we sell as a business. Right? We've got the names of them, we've got the categories that they are and the subcategories. Right? So those are going to be really important for the way that we're going to want to analyze, because we may want to know, how much office supplies did we sell? How many of those were binders, bookcases, that kind of thing, right? So you get to the point, don't you, where you go, all right, I can do this, yeah? Really quick, really easy. The next one we want to do is our customer, all right? So we're going to start by going, let's find the customer ID. Along with customer ID, we need the customer name, the customer segment. Oh, hang on. Country, city, state, postal code. Oh, that's a bit of on region as well. Oh, that's a lot there that we've got for customers. I could see you might have 2 customers in the same postal code. So that could be really inefficient. We might want to know, how many customers have we got in, say, in Los Angeles or in Fort Lauderdale. Is there a better thing we could do? Is there? Can you think? So how about if we remove country, state, and region from that, right? And we'll go and we'll do what we did before. And we're going to right click on it, we're going to reference it, and this is going to be customer. Okay, so for our customer ID, customer name, segment, and postal code. Okay, right click on that, remove all the columns, which gives us just those, right click, remove duplicates, so we have just our unique list of customers. Okay, so far so good? Think so. Hang on, you're going to say, right, what about that stuff you just had us do? So let's bring in our geography. So I'm going to right click on that and reference that. You're starting to get why I'm using this base, aren't you? I know what he's doing, right? Geography. Okay? And I've added a letter. Geography. Okay? What we'll do is we'll start with postal code. City, state, country, and region. And then we'll right click, remove the other columns. For postal code this time, we're going to right click and remove duplicates. Okay, so we've now got a unique list of the postal codes that we use, because we might want to then produce a report looking at how many customers have we got in the central region, or how many customers have we got in whatever, how many countries have we got in it, just United States, great, superfluous. But you could imagine we could have Canada, we could have Mexico, we could have the UK, right? This is consistent ways of working. We're starting to logically break down what we need, okay? So we've got that done now, haven't we? So the last piece of information that we're going to need is the orders, isn't it? Now look in here, we can see we've got multiple in here in the orders. So we're pretty sure we're going to need the order numbers to collate what each order is worth, yeah? So we have order ID, right? And this is where you might find, in the real terms, you end up with 2 tables for it, but we're doing one single fact for it. So we've got the order ID, let's get the order date, the ship date, the ship mode, okay? Once we've got those, what we need to do is bring through sales, quantity, So there we go, yeah? we've pulled through the orders. So we're going to call that orders, right? And you'll notice one thing around here. I'm not putting F or fact or dimension around it, okay? If you're doing traditional, like, database-based analysis, which, to be honest, Power BI is, right? Chances are you would use F and D or fact and dimension. And in real terms, I often still do. Depends on the audience that I'm working with. But one of the things that Power BI does is it gives the capability of actually using now, like, you've got the analyze in Excel function, you've got the ability to connect directly anyway into your Power BI data sets from a customer perspective, especially if you're in like the premium capacity environment. So it becomes, once you've got that, it becomes really sensible to have clear names for everything so that it's accessible for your audience. And as the natural language querying continues to evolve, you want them to have sensible, easy names that are going to make sense rather than something that just does not make any sense at all. Like fact order, right? What? F orders, right? Okay. So I've got that, and I've got my calendar now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit close and apply, okay? And that'll then pull those tables through, okay? It's not a lot of data, so it's not too difficult. It'll all come in. The last thing we need to do is check here, and we can see automatically Power BI has picked up the relationships between the vast majority of the tables. So we've now got orders here, and if we put it at the bottom, this is kind of standard structuring people do, where you put your fact tables at the bottom and dimensions above them. Right? We'll tier the dimensions because we've got a sub-dimension here, haven't we? And the last one is, of course, dates. So we're going to connect dates to the order date, and then I'm going to connect dates to the ship date. Right? And because of the nature of what I do, I want the ship date to be the passive relationship. And we can see it's the passive relationship because if we click there, it's unticked to make it active. Right? So we've suddenly built a data model very quickly and easily, and we can see the structure has combined. And to prove it works, right, and to prove just how simple it is, right, I could just be in here and say, right, sales, so it's going to give me a total sales amount, and I could pick and say, well, I want to have that by month name, okay? Right? They're not in order yet because there's a couple of steps that we need to do, and we're going to cover a lot of the stuff around calendars next week. Okay? But what you can see is straight away I've got that. I could decide to drop the calendars, bring in my products. So if we bring in subcategories and categories, for example, well, let's actually do it that way, yeah? Category, subcategory, so we can then choose to expand that down. We can then see how they go, yeah? Straight away, really quick, really simple. We've done that. That didn't take a huge amount of time and effort, did it? Yeah? I mentioned geography, didn't I? And I said we might be able to, well, not might, we can. So we could go, let's click away from there. So we could say state, and let's look at, it's already pulled them in through in the US, so it kind of knows. It's great with that, isn't it? Power BI does things like that. We can say total sales across states. Okay? Done. So what have you reckon then? Okay? What you need to understand with this is that the basic starting points of modelling and getting into your Power BI data structures and data sets is about piecing it all together. So how can I make my model more performant? How can I do more? It's always about starting to think properly in terms of my facts and my dimensions that I'm going to have. Yeah, and where best to structure those together. Right? Where a couple of things happened with the calendar, right? In particular, what you saw was that the month numbers or the months weren't sorting properly yet. Okay, and there's some stuff I really am going to go in there. The eagle-eyed of you might have noticed as well that I did say I imported the calendar, but when I first went through into that query builder, there were 4 tables, 4 even, not 3, 4. Okay, so there are 3 hidden tables in my calendar. You go, what's he up to, right? So next week, I thought we'd have a look and actually see what is it that goes into making a calendar a good calendar. Okay? And one of the things that I've said many times, right, every time I run these courses, I always say the same thing. Develop your calendar to work for you, right, and make sure you put it somewhere and reuse it constantly. Okay, I actually have mine in a data flow. Right? Within Geordie Intelligence, we've got premium environment, right? So we've got in the data flow, make it available. Anybody wants to build a report, let's pull that down, the same standard calendar, and that way it's all consistent, right? For your business, you want to try and do something similar. But what I'm going to do is I'll show you the structure that I use, right? It's a few tables, right? But basically, and I really wish I could remember the starting point of it, or where I found the starting point. But it was something I found on Googling it, like years ago, as a starting point for a calendar. And I can't remember the original source. I can't find it anywhere. I apologize. I'm not trying to steal someone else's work, right? Someone else's work got it started. I'll take you through the rest of it, how we added it up, right? And hopefully everyone will be happy, right? But for now, right, why don't we all have a great week, yeah? Stay safe, take care, ta-da.